Hello and welcome, Ms. Jonathan. Mr. Jonathan, it's a great pleasure to welcome you to Inside Digital Humanities. I'm Emirhan Kabataş, co-founder and coordinator of Inside Digital Humanities. We invited you for an interview for the How to DH section of our platform, and we are grateful for your kind participation. Our main goal for the How to DH section for our platform is to show scholars to a background of digital humanities and computational social sciences, inspire new researchers, and build a bridge between researchers. In this context, our dear editor, Ms. Tuba, will conduct an interview with you. The interview will also be published on our platform's website. Thank you again for your participation. Here we go.
All right, wonderful.
Good, thank you, and welcome to interviews of the Inside DH platform. Today we are with dear Jonathan Parks-Allen from OpenITI project. The Open Islamicate Text Initiative project has been working since 2016 to understand Islamicate culture more closely. This multi-institutional project includes researchers from Aga Khan University's Institute for the Study of Muslim Civilization in London, Rosha Khan Institute for Persian Studies in the University of Maryland, College Park, and University of Hamburg. The participant investigators are Matthew Thomas Miller, Maxim Romanov, and Saraçoğlu. Today we are going to talk about HDR technologies with Jonathan Parks-Allen from the project team around eScriptorium, and you can find a tutorial of eScriptorium on their platform and on OpenITI YouTube channel and below in this video. Thank you for accepting our invitation and welcome.
Oh, thank you. I enjoy talking, and it's always nice to talk about what OpenITI is doing and kind of where we're going as well. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And we are excited to discuss HDR technologies that will be of interest to a wide range of researchers, and I'm sure that will be it will be a pleasant conversation. First of all, we would like to get to know better. Could you speak about your brief digital humanities background and the OpenITI projects?
Sure. So before I started with OpenITI in the winter of 2019, I was aware of digital humanities as a thing. I had attended at least one of these still, I guess, pretty regular workshops on DH. It was held at Brown University several years ago. And I kind of kept up with like some of the ideas in DH, but I would not have described myself as a digital humanist, except in kind of the broadest sense of, we all use search, we all use the internet, word processing, this sort of thing. Beyond that, I didn't really have any particular expertise or knowledge of the field. So I've had to do a lot of kind of learning as I've gone as part of OpenITI. I still, I don't know if I don't know if I'd describe myself as like a proper digital humanist even now. I don't do a lot of my own sort of computational work. I'm not good at coding any of these things. I primarily work on what we call the humanities side of the project. So we actually, we have several contributing teams that make up OpenITI and our various projects that we are pursuing. And they're divided into, roughly into humanists and into computer scientists. Some of us on the humanist side have, some expertise on the computer science side. But in general, a lot of what we do is figuring out how to kind of to translate what the different sides need and are doing, and thereby sort of move our work forward. And so my work with OpenITI has involved both that sort of thing of working with the computer science teams as we develop our our deliverables, as we call them, as well as exploring some things in the humanities that are not directly related to the DH side, but ultimately kind of are part of it. So in many ways, over the last couple of years, I guess I've kind of reinvented myself as a historian of the book, and really of information and communication, I think would be a way to put it. Yeah. So I feel like I've been with OpenITI since 2019, and it's now 2023. My goodness, it's a long time, actually.
Yeah. And what were the main research questions of your projects in OpenITI project?
Yeah. So initially, when I started in 2019, our primary goal, and I don't know if research question would quite be the way to describe it, I guess really kind of a practical goal, was to develop optical character recognition for Arabic script. So as I imagine most listeners will know, until quite recently, optical character recognition for Arabic script was pretty poor, to non-existent. If you tried to search in a PDF, if it even had searchability, results would be pretty poor. We wanted to address this, and so for a couple of years, that was our primary goal, of refining OCR, making it actually workable for Arabic script. And crucially, one of the things that we set out early on to do, and this is continuing in our HTR work, we wanted to develop OCR models that were applicable across the whole history of Arabic script print. So from the beginning, the 19th century up
just classical,
Yep. So everything, we've largely accomplished what we set out to do. We're still kind of refining Urdu. Urdu, of course, poses some of its own challenges. Most Urdu contemporary typefaces are Nastaliq derived. So we still have a little bit of work to do there, but for the most part, we've kind of concluded our OCR work. Our work now, both sort of practical and on the more sort of research side, is now focused really on manuscripts, which we can talk about a little bit more. So handwritten text recognition, and some projects that are related to that, of a bit more of a research focus.
Yeah, great. And I'd like to add one more question about the project. What are the type of text covered by OpenITI corpus, in which languages, in which format, and as you say, it's covered printed books and also manuscripts.
So the original goal, and this is still our goal, and it's something we have different projects contributing to this. As you can kind of guess from the name, the Open Islamic Text Initiative, our goal really was to increase the number of electronic texts from the Islamic world available online. So before OpenITI, there were, and there still are, a lot of Arabic script text on the internet. I mean, we all use, there's Shamala and similar services or repositories, whatever you want to call them. Likewise with manuscripts, we have a lot of stuff. OpenITI set out to do a couple of things. One, to increase the representation within these corpora of texts. So if you think about a repository like Shamala, for instance, it has a lot of stuff. It's mostly in Arabic, and it tends to be, it's like certain genres, particular authors are going to be very represented in certain, periods. So a lot of kind of classical stuff, a lot of medieval stuff. Early modern authors, somewhat rare, and certain topics you may not find. And then there's, some things are totally absent. So no Christian Arabic, for instance. And of course, no Persian. So one of the things we wanted to do, and this is still one of our primary goals, is just to expand the representation. If we think about all of the literary production in Arabic script languages, so we're talking not just Arabic, but also Persian, Ottoman Turkish, Urdu. Eventually it would be wonderful to include all of these other, vernaculars as well. Southeast Asia, the Ajami script languages in West Africa. So we would like to create a corpus of electronic texts that spans really everything from the pre-modern world. And even there, we generally have a rough cutoff of about 1800, but I mean, it's not a hard and fast rule. So certainly as we build our Urdu corpus, we will include stuff going all the way up to the 19th century. I mean, up to the 1900s, I'm sorry. But our focus is...
that sounds great, really. And manuscript, I have a question about manuscripts. The manuscripts' lack of text standardization must have been challenging. So what was the process of processing raw data and converting it to structured data? And if you want, you are also welcome to show us an example from eScriptorium.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me talk just a bit about kind of how we're developing HTR.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is, I should note, we are very much, I wouldn't say maybe at the very beginning, we're still kind of at the initial level. And I should also say, while I understand how the OCR training data works pretty well, you generate a lot of training data, you plug it into your system, you generate models, using all that training data. The methods we're using for HTR are a little bit different. So we're experimenting, and I say I'm not really doing any of the computer science stuff. It's our colleagues at Northeastern and University of California, San Diego, who are doing most of this. But one of the methods that they are trying out is an unsupervised form of training. So basically using just large amounts of just unannotated manuscripts. So, no manual transcriptions, nothing manually done, and feeding these large corpora into their model generation. I don't fully understand how it works, but the idea is that we should be able to produce HTR models that will work for a very large range of manuscripts. And I think this goes maybe a bit to your question. If you think about printed texts, there's a manageable finite number of variation. So picture, you pick up a book in Arabic or Persian. If you know that the date it was printed, you can almost guess what the typeface will look like, because there just aren't that many. There are only maybe 20, 30 at the most typefaces that you're going to find in any Arabic or Persian book. For Ottoman Turkish, there's like a half dozen, and that's it. So we were able to capture pretty much all of that diversity in our training data. So in the transcriptions that we did and corrected for print. For manuscripts, of course, it's something very different entirely, right? In a way, every manuscript is a little bit, different. Even the same scribe, same Ottoman scribe, writing in his nice, neat Naskh hand, he's going to vary a little bit from, manuscript to manuscript, even from the beginning to the end. It might be very small variation, and then when you look at the whole kind of global tradition, obviously there's just tons and tons of variation. So we as human transcribers generating training data are never going to capture all of that, right? I mean, we'd be working for like hundreds of years to do it. And so what we are trying to do is to find ways to use that just raw data, the raw images of manuscripts, to combine that with some training data, so some annotated ground truth that I've been producing, as well as a lot of other people kind of working with us. And basically leveraging both of those things to try and get robust HTR models. So according to our computer science guys, this method is showing promise, and I trust them. So we'll hopefully, we'll be seeing, I think before too much longer, kind of what they're actually turning out. And part of my job will be to to kind of do the human verification, to look and see, all right, are we actually getting the numbers that we think we're getting, and to see how things actually stack up. So I think if you guys check back in maybe 6 months to a year, we'll have more to more to say on that front, inshallah.
Inshallah. And what is the success rate of eScriptorium? Did you observe any differences according to the languages or the text types?
Yep. So I guess 2 ways to answer that, and also I'll show an example of eScriptorium so people know what we're talking. For our OCR models, we currently get about 97 to 98% accuracy, which is quite good. I mean, that's what we aimed for. If you are, if you upload a book and you want to, you want a quality electronic edition, you still need to go through and make, check. There will be a few little errors here and there, but in general, it's very good. And if you're doing computational stuff, I mean, it's perfectly fine. For HTR, we don't expect to get accuracy rates that high. I mean, I guess it would be great if we did. We would like to get something in, say, the 80% range. So that will allow for kind of text search within a manuscript. You can use dirty data like that for some computational methods. It could definitely, I mean, there's a lot you could do even with those accuracy numbers. As for eScriptorium, so let me see if I can share screen. Yeah, okay. So just for people who are unfamiliar, so eScriptorium is our I guess we call it a transcription platform. It can actually be used for a number of things, but its core purpose is for transcription. So I'll just show you. And what you do, you upload a digitized text, print our manuscript. And if it's print, you can do automatic segmentation and transcription. And by segmentation, let me show, because I realize these words may not be familiar to everyone. So segmentation is the the drawing of lines over your text lines, basically following the baseline of the text. This then generates a mask, and ideally this masking will capture all of the letter forms. Once HTR is available, and for OCR this already works, the HTR then will read the letter forms within this masking and give you an automatic transcription. Since we're not there yet for manuscripts, you can use eScriptorium for manual transcription. So you can you can type out what you see. So I've been using it a good bit for manuscripts for the last, I don't know, year or so, and it has both strengths and weaknesses. The strength, I think, is it helps you to focus on the line of text. So you sit down, you've got all the letter forms there in front of you. You can really focus on this line and getting it right. The weakness, I think, and there are ways around this, but when you're doing this kind of just line by line transcription. The weakness can be when you're doing paleography, it's often helpful to have the entire page. So if you think, it's when you're trying to figure out, all right, what is this letter form? Like, is this just a long line, or is this a scene, right? One of the ways, you do that is you scan up and down the page. You look for words that are familiar, and then you kind of, you figure out from there. You're basically producing this training data for your brain. In eScriptorium, that's a little tricky. In a single line, you might just have one letter. So like, like this terminal he. You may not see it somewhere else. What you can do, you can actually just bring up the page itself, and then you can kind of scan it. So there are ways around it. And I will say, and this is important to note, we have a redesign coming. So we'll be rolling out the redesigned eScriptorium probably either this fall or winter. The functions will be the same. There'll be some things added, but the user interface is going to look very different, and it'll be a lot more user friendly, and there'll be a lot more things that you can kind of do with it. But for now, I mean, it is a good platform. I've used it. I've transcribed many pages of manuscripts now, and I've mostly enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's looks very useful for manuscripts, also for printed Ottoman Turkish text.
Yeah. For print,
thank you for sharing.
So for print, you can plug in an OCR model, and you can generate automatic transcriptions, which is, if you want to produce electronic text that you can search and that you can do computational methods on, that's really useful. And like I said, in the future, hopefully, this will also be possible, if to a more limited extent, with manuscripts as well. So.
Yes, and the next question, what were the biggest challenges you or your team faced during the project? And were these challenges related to data or the tools you used?
Oh, man. Well, we've had a lot of challenges. So the first one that we faced, I mean, this was not unique to us, but so OpenIT started in 2016. We really got off the ground in 2019. And our OCR work really took off in 2019, beginning of 2020. Was it January? January or February of 2020, we had this big workshop at the University of Maryland, where we had experts and Islamicate fields. We had people from the computer science world. We had a guy from what's the company, NVIDIA. So they're like one of the biggest Silicon Valley companies these days. It was a really big deal. A lot of as they say, synergy going on. We were very optimistic. We also had finally gotten an agreement with the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., it took a while. It had taken like a couple years to kind of work out an agreement with them. And we were all set to start on some collaborative work with the Library of Congress in March of 2020. And then, of course, everything happened in 2020. A lot of our work basically just stopped because at the time, one of the things we were doing, we were scanning books. We were requesting them through interlibrary loan and then making scans of them to produce training data and also our corpus list. And of course, that just stopped.
Yeah.
And it was another year or so before we could really get books, easily. So COVID probably set us back by about a year. ironically, because you'd think this is digital stuff, but particularly at the beginning for the OCR, we needed a lot in the physical kind of meat space world, and COVID just messed that up. So that was kind of the first thing. Like other things, a lot of other stuff, I would describe it more as kind of learning curves, I think. And a lot of it has had to do with, well, yeah, with data, and particularly with kind of sharing data and figuring out, well, how do you store it? How do you organize your data? For me, at least, that's been maybe the biggest learning curve.
Yeah.
Because it's not something you have to be concerned with like as a grad student or as just kind of a regular academic, right? You make your Google Drives of like PDFs, that you share with people. But when you're dealing with large amounts of data, of training data, of all of your like inputs, and just and metadata as well, because we generate a ton of metadata, it starts to add up. And then after a while, you're getting messages from your colleagues. They're like, where is such and such file or folder? Have we put it all together? So at first, I would not say that I personally did a very good job of this. In fact, I did not. But we have definitely improved. We've improved our kind of data organization. We've greatly improved how we record metadata. The other thing, and this is kind of related. So the Open ITI team, we're dispersed all over the world, right? We have people at least 3 continents. We are almost never all in the same room together. In fact, I think we've been in the same room together, I don't know, maybe like 2 or 3 times, in the last 4 years. So one of the challenges is just kind of coordinating everybody's efforts, and then finding ways to kind of track our progress and to make sure that everything is fitting together. We thought about using some of these, I believe they're called Kanban systems. So I don't know if you guys have come across these, but they're basically like kind of organizing, and you set deadlines and things, and they're a bit more sophisticated than that. So they all kind of mesh together, so that what everyone is doing. Everybody knows when they're supposed to do things, and you can track your team's progress. Which when you have more than 2 or 3 people becomes really important, because you lose track of what everyone else is doing. So we were gonna actually pay for one of these, but it turns out they're very expensive. And one of my colleagues on the team, he actually was able to put together something for free using like Google Docs and spreadsheets, which is really nice. So yeah, I would say that those things like data organization and kind of group communication and coordination, those posed real difficulties, but I do think we've gotten much better at it, and that we've kind of learned as we went. So
Yeah.
over.
Yes. Let me another question about HR technologies. What role do you believe eScriptorium or HDR technologies in general will play in the future of the manuscript research? And what changes do you expect?
Yeah. Oh, that's probably the biggest question. Yeah. And it's hard to answer for several reasons. So I think we can think about it. There are multiple, if you will, variables at work. Some of them are kind of in our control, and others are not. So one of the variables is how well will our HTR models end up, right? We don't know. With the OCR stuff, we knew, if we generated enough training data, we could get really high accuracy rates, because people have been doing that like since I was born. OCR is not a new or difficult technology. It's just that Arabic script was neglected, because that's just how it always turns out. And just nobody had done it. So with OCR, that was not, there wasn't really any question there. What we're doing with handwritten text recognition and with manuscripts in general, so we have some other projects as well of a digital nature that are related. This is more experimental. This is more exploratory. So seeing what kind of results can we get. And then once we get those results, whatever they are, a question of, well, then what do you do with them? One of the things that we would like to do with manuscripts is to make use of the possibilities that digital environments give you, that in some ways are better and more flexible than print. One of our projects right now that's we're working on simultaneously is developing multi-witness manuscript editions that will be published in digital environments. So basically alternatives to the classic critical edition that's printed in, we hope, and we'll see, but we hope that digital environments can give us an edge on this, that we can reflect the diversity of manuscripts. So if you think about how manuscript texts change over time, how they they evolve and diverge and converge, all this sort of thing. This is also, we'll see. This is also experimental, and certainly we're not the only ones doing things like this. But it is still something that's just starting out. The bigger question, though, I think is, all right, let's say that HTR proves successful. Right, let's say we get 80% accuracy rates, right? You can now upload your manuscript to eScriptorium or the platform of your choice. This is all open source. You don't have to use ours. And you can automatically transcribe a manuscript. You can now search within it. You can create a searchable PDF of the manuscript. You can run, computational methods using manuscripts. On the positive side, we hope that this will mean that libraries and archives who have a lot of digitized manuscripts, that they will be better placed to figure out what is in these manuscripts. So if you think about a really large repository where you might have thousands of Islamic manuscripts, we may know what the main text is, or some of the texts. If you think with the Majmua, maybe those have been identified, maybe they haven't.
Yeah.
If you think out a bit more, if you think what's in the margins of these texts, what's in the interlinear, etc. That often is not cataloged, because it's a lot of work. We hope that with HTR, that just at a very basic level, things like cataloging manuscripts will become easier, and that we'll just be able to start identifying what all of these things are. And so that metadata creation and searchability will improve. We also hope that HTR will encourage more people to use manuscripts as their go-to source, right? At present, my feeling is, and I don't know for sure, I don't think anyone has done a survey on this, but I think generally when we as scholars of Islamic history, when we're looking for a text, we will often turn to the print edition first. I think it would be it would be really great maybe if people started turning to manuscripts, and not just one manuscript, but if you're thinking about any text in manuscript form, it exists usually in multiple manuscripts. Well, what if you could relatively easily examine multiple manuscript witnesses basically at once, instead of having to look for a print edition, which may or may not be very good, right? It may or may not be critical in any sense. We hope that more people will, not just want to work with manuscripts, but will try to learn about paleography, will try to incorporate codicology, and really take manuscripts seriously. The reason I say there are other variables is, we're also kind of depending on there being a field of like, Islamic history or Islamic studies 5 or 10 years from now. And that, that's something that's totally out of our control. We can't determine what the future of our fields is going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
That said, our hope is that these tools, that they will be picked up by people, certainly in academia, in universities, both in the United States and Europe, but around the world, but also by people who just, they're just interested in Islamic manuscripts, who, they don't need to have a scholarly background. And in fact, we would love to see more people, actually use all these digitized manuscripts. People who are just interested in, Islamic history, or like, I don't know, they would like to read like, Hanafi fiqh in the original texts. If our tools can help with that, that would be wonderful. What I do worry a little bit about, and then, again, it kind of depends on how good HTR gets, but I don't really, personally, I don't really want to see a future where people just, you have a manuscript and you just create an electronic text of it. I think it's important that people continue to actually read the actual thing, right?
Yeah.
That you are interacting with the manuscript in its digitized format, and also, it'd be great in physical format too. I think both of those are really important. I hope that in the future people will still, they'll still need to learn some paleography. You'll still need to kind of wrestle with these things and try to make sense of them. I see our tools as helping and supplementing, but hopefully not replacing. I guess that would be the way I would put it. But again, a lot of that is kind of out of our hands. So yeah, I hope that kind of answers.
Yeah, great, thank you. And it's HTR models, HTR technologies will open for manuscripts that is new windows, and actually we couldn't find something in physical printed edition like marginalia notes or any other things, but we hope it will be good for all of us. And the next question about the data sets. Does your project include open source data, databases or application? And do you share your data with linked data methods or open access platforms like GitHub or Zenodo, I think?
Yeah. So most of our data is freely available on both GitHub, and then it's archived on Zenodo. And I can share the links with y'all for the show notes or whatever. The only exceptions are we do have some data that we have used that's from more restricted archives. So for instance, I don't know, like the Vatican. They don't generally share their data. We're going to be using some data from the Hill Manuscript Museum and Library for our HTR training. That data will be held, it will remain private, because they have particular arrangements with the collections that they digitize.
Yeah.
But if the data that we're using is itself, publicly available, it is in our data sets and made public. So any, in any like the transcriptions that we do, the electronic text that we generate, that's all open source. It's all going to be made available. The only things that would, might be held back are page images if they are from, a restricted repository. But otherwise, yeah, everything is freely available. And we publish everything in an open source, non-commercial license. So, in fact, we're required to by our funders. So,
yes, and thank you. And if you share the links, we can also add it to the video. And the last question: what will be a next step for your projects? For your project?
Yeah. So, I mean, the big thing right now, of course, is developing the handwritten text recognition. And also, I didn't mention this, but a challenge that we're also sort of facing is segmentation and region analysis. So, manuscripts, as I imagine all our listeners will know, they're complex things. They're, sometimes they're just the column of text, some nice big margins, but very often manuscripts have, multiple regions of text on the page. The text might go, go in like loops, like zigzags. I mean, I'm pretty sure I've seen like spirals of text. It's just, it's crazy. Our segmentation right now can handle some of that, but not all of it. And we're still facing challenges in automatic recognition of all of these different sorts of lines and regions. It's definitely a challenge. So that's something we'll continue to work on along with the handwritten text recognition. Once this is finished, so once we, inshallah, have good HGR models, good region analysis, I think the next big step, and it's something we're already working on, but we'll continue, is to really, kind of figure out what are we going to do with this stuff, and both in terms of our own projects, what can we be doing, what can we be building that will incorporate manuscripts in a digital environment and do interesting things with them, right? And related to that is really building a community of users, of finding people around the world who want to use these tools, who want to help develop the methods and the platforms and all these other things. And we found, the internet is honestly, it's a bit cliche, but it is a great way to do this. It lets us connect with people whom we're never going to see probably in person, literally around the world. And particularly for a field like ours, where there are only so many people, let's say, who are interested in digital Islamic humanities, right? This is a relatively small group of people, and we're all kind of scattered around the world. We want to develop forms of community online and also in person when we can, to bring these people together and to explore ways that we can, refine our methods and that we can make use of them and actually produce, new knowledge, new editions of text, new ways of interacting with and kind of understanding, this incredible and truly just massive part of human history that's represented by Islamic texts, from the beginnings all the way up to the present. So that's kind of our long-term goal. And it's the sort of thing that, we would like to see continue, for years, for years to come. So we'll see. We are, we're grant supported. We have to kind of renew our funding streams periodically. And so, we have to be able to put forward, here's something concrete that we're going to do. So, that's one of those variables that we're sort of dependent on. But we'll see. And doing, I mean, honestly, being able to do interviews like this is really part of that mission of getting the word out and of finding people who want to participate. And we welcome, any kind of like collaborators. If you have projects that you think would kind of fit in with our mission, if you just want to, kind of play around with our tools, our platform, we welcome people contacting us, and we will kind of get you in the loop. I encourage everybody, and we can put these links in, but we have a Twitter account where we try to post updates, and we're going to be doing more of that in the future. We also have a website where we do blog posts and other updates. And I'm finally, one of my projects for the coming academic year is to make to kind of bring the website back to life and to regularly post stuff. So I encourage people to keep an eye on that space as well.
Yeah. Thank you very much. If you share with us with that links, we will add it to our video, and we aim that we would like to meet people, and so it's really good. Thank you, Jonathan, for joining us today.
All right, we'll see y'all later.
Thank you very much for being with us. It was a pleasure to welcome you on our platform. We have come to the end of this interview of Inside Digital Humanities, How to DH. See you in the next How to DH interview. We wish everyone a good day. Thank you for participation again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.